one of the impacts that I'm hoping to make
Mm-hmm.
is to show folks that they can trust each other
Mm-hmm.
again by giving grace to each other,
Yeah.
not having an expectation of perfection, which is another tenet of
Yeah.
white supremacy culture.
Welcome. I'm your host, Roheen Bajram. I'm on a mission to redefine the faces of leadership through speaking, consulting, and writing. Unspeakable Leadership is a space to reclaim our stories and empower each other to see the value in how we, as women of color, lead. I hope you'll join me on this journey of unpacking experiences, lessons learned, sharing laughs, and likely a tear or two. Let us grow together in conversation. Hi, everyone. I am so excited because you get to hear from somebody who I feel, has spent a lifetime of doing incredible work. And I'm only excited even more about the chapters that this person will continue to write, live, speak about, and share. Let me tell you a little bit about Lystra Jermaine Sam. Lystra is a social justice entrepreneur, community activist, a mentor, lifelong learner, writer, community connector, working actor, and facilitator. She is also the founder and managing director, decolonizing travel specialist for Qmooniti Travel and Lifestyle, her travel company since 2017. Lystra has curated events in Vancouver since the mid 90s that included some notable names, some who you might actually know, such as musical royalty like Janet Jackson, Destiny's Child, basketball star Shaquille O'Neal, hip hop giant Nas, music producer David Foster, tennis great Andre Agassi, and so many more. I am sure Lystra has incredible stories to tell, one that I hope might surface either today or at some point in time. These days, she's more vocal than ever about her intersectional activism and advocacy, and focuses on building community containers using decolonizing methods to bring joy and wellness to those with whom she shares community. Lystra, it is such a pleasure to have you here on Unspeakable Leadership. I have been sitting here on the edge of my seat waiting to have this conversation because every time that I'm in your company, I take away so much more and I feel so much more. So thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me, Roheen. It's amazing to actually be here with you on your podcast, as well as to be in your company. I remember our meeting with each other in a community event, and
Mhm.
I was moderating a
You were,
panel, wasn't I?
yeah.
And at the end of the panel, you had such a wonderful and brilliant question. And I think at that point, at the end of that panel, was the first time I mentioned that we need to do healing about money in
Yes.
terms of our community before we start talking about, or at least whilst we're talking about financial literacy. So I think that, yeah, leads us into, yeah, the conversation for today.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I'm really glad that you brought that forward as the topic and the focus for our conversation this trial. And we absolutely will get into it. What I would love to first hear from you is your leadership journey. Like, you just reading your bio and reading the what feels like almost several careers all in one that you have
Oh,
been a
yeah.
part of. Share with us, what does that journey look like for you?
Okay, yeah, I was thinking about this question. I
Mhm.
wanted to start, if I could, by paying homage and honoring the land that we're on, that I'm sitting on, that I work from, that I play from. I am in so-called Canada, colonially known as Canada,
Mhm.
and I am on the territories of the Squamish, the Tsleil-Waututh, and the Musqueam nations.
Mhm.
And I start facilitations that I do, as well as ones that I'm invited into, by making sure that I do this honoring, because to me, it really is a bare minimum to the stewards of the land that we are on. And so, thank you for giving me the opportunity to do that,
Thank you.
Romy. And I will tell you that my own leadership story journey, it's kind of funny to me because I'm like, I didn't have a choice.
Tell me
I
more.
did I did not.
Mhm,
I am the child of a Trinidadian father and a Tobagonian mother.
mhm,
And honestly, together, they raised myself. I have five other siblings.
mhm,
So they raised us like they actually had a saying in the house, which was, we didn't make any followers.
mm. Wow.
So I think if I'm not a follower, I'm not a bystander for sure,
Right.
you know? So I think that means I'm a leader.
Yeah.
And that's really what they were getting at. They were saying, like, we're not raising y'all to be
Yeah.
followers. You're not following Jimmy or Patty. You're going to make your own decisions and be strong in those, be confident, and also lead with integrity. That was the biggest thing. So when I say I don't think I had a choice, I mean that that's how I was raised.
Mhm,
And so my leadership journey is one where, to be perfectly honest with you, standing up to that, that background,
yeah.
that my parents saying you're going to be
Yeah.
leaders, it's not always easy in the
Mhm,
world that we live in today,
yeah.
or even the world that I was raised in, which was not today, was a few decades ago.
Mhm,
Because we were immigrants.
mhm,
I was born in Trinidad, so I came to Canada when I was like 6 years old. So we were immigrants. We're Black.
mhm,
I myself am a female. And so leadership, with all of that going on, I guess if I start at the very beginning, coming to Canada, there were ways in which you feel like you have to assimilate
yeah.
to what's going on around you. And I believe that assimilation creates self hatred.
Mhm,
And anyway, it did with me.
mhm,
Because I think assimilation, there's a dominant culture.
yeah.
That dominant culture is a white bodied culture.
Mhm,
And if I'm not white, then I'm trying to be white or
mhm,
hide myself so that I still can fit into whiteness.
mhm,
And I don't think it's a healthy environment, to be honest with you.
mhm,
And I think that there's a lot about it that needs to change. And I think I knew that from a young age, because I did find myself with, self-loathing and
mhm,
trying to, and not just self-loathing, but being kind and loving to
mhm,
other folks who looked either like me or were somehow brown or indigenous,
mhm,
or that coming along, listening to the dominant voice again,
mhm,
that talks about who people are, and then
mhm.
following that. So there's a little bit of following going on there, because that's what assimilation is.
Right.
It's following, right?
Yeah.
Once I was able to break free of that assimilation and understand that that really wasn't what my heart believed and
Mm.
wanted, which didn't take too long, but took too long. You know what
Yeah.
I mean?
Yeah.
I think I graduated when I was 16.
Mhm,
I graduated high school. By that time, I knew.
mhm,
Like, I knew from grade 10. I was like, I mean, I probably knew a lot sooner because I was doing things like that would be considered not normal.
mhm,
At a pretty young age, I was marching, I was
mhm,
reading books about liberation and
mhm.
liberation leaders when I was, 10 years old.
Right.
I was volunteering at a home for young pregnant
Mm.
women, girls.
Yeah.
They were like teenagers, right? They
Yeah.
were 14, 15, 16 years old. I had to scrap with my parents for that one, because they were thinking, well, if we let her around
Right.
them, then, is that going to rub off, kind
Mhm.
of thing. And I was I had met somebody and she had made a difference to my heart. So I was like, no, I want to go there and I want to, help. I want to read to the babies. I want to, like just help these
Yeah.
girls. I want to be with them. So by the time I was graduating high school, I definitely knew where who I
Yeah.
was. I knew about my own confidence. I
Mm.
had my own integrity. I had my own path to walk. There were things that my schoolmates were doing and talking about that I was absolutely like going,
Mhm.
yeah, no, that's not for me.
Mhm.
It would have made me really cool if I was saying yes.
Yeah.
And I was like, don't really care about being cool. I'm going to do what I think is the right thing to do. So, yeah, I think the leadership started at a pretty young age. And I have had, as you mentioned, there have been several careers.
Mhm.
And those careers have usually been in a leadership position, including entrepreneurship. I started my entrepreneurial journey when I was 21. That's pretty young, I
That
guess.
is.
But to me, it seemed like a lifetime. Like
Mm.
I was dreaming about this journey and this step from the time I was like 11 years old. So 10 years is, I had to wait a whole
Yeah, I
10
know.
years. That was a
It's a
lifetime.
lot.
Okay.
Yeah.
Um, and I took that leadership my story is very convoluted because I was here in Vancouver. I was part of a team. My brother, my friend Allison, a couple of other guys. We were part of an events management team
Mm.
that was doing like after parties when concerts,
Yeah.
like Janet Jackson came and
Yeah.
did her concert, and then we would do a bid to have her after party at one of the nightclubs that we
Yeah.
managed, right?
Right.
And so when she said yes, that's why you were able to mention her
Yeah.
name. I was hanging out with her dancers and, young and hip
I'll be
and
like
dancing
dancing
my
like this.
face off,
Yeah.
And then her dancer was like, "Do you want to come meet Janet?" And I was like, "Yeah, who doesn't want to
Yeah.
meet Janet?" You know what I mean? So went over and hung out at the table with her, and she didn't say much. And I just remember being there. That's it. And us chatting a little bit and having a laugh, and then her encouraging her dancers to go dance some more. So we did a lot of that. So that was our company there. I had a role. I was the writer of quite a few of the bids that we would make, like the proposals,
Mhm.
and I also made certain that we would have a charity proponent to every
Mm.
single thing that we did.
Mhm.
During that time, my parents passed away
Mm.
in a
So sad.
very short period of time within a very short period of time of each other.
Yeah.
And it was actually a big period of loss. It was not
Mhm.
just my parents. It was a lot more that was going on.
Mhm.
And that I couldn't stay in Vancouver. Like
Mm.
I don't know, but what I just could not stay.
Yeah.
And then another little story, which I won't get into the whole thing of
Mhm.
because it would take up our whole hour. I've always been a Prince fan, and Prince did a concert here that my friend insisted I go to.
Mhm.
And I had just seen him in concert maybe 3 weeks earlier in Seattle. But between us, her and I, we love him, and we just were like dancing around town, shopping for our little outfits, and talking about how we're gonna go dance with Prince tonight. Yay. And people were like, "Oh, you're going to the Prince concert?" And we were like, "No, we're going to dance with Prince tonight." Anyways, when we got to the concert, he started the concert, and probably not more than 10, 15 minutes into the concert, he shunned this light on me and he said, "You are down there dancing way too hot to be dancing by your." He said, "Come on up here and dance. Come on." And I was like, he can't possibly be talking to me. So I was like looking around, going,
Yeah.
who's he talking to? My friend is pushing me, going, he's talking to you. Anyway, so he then stopped again. He said, "Yeah, you, come on." So I went up and I asked him a little later on, could my friend join us? And he said, "Sure, is that the friend?" And I said, "Yeah." And so she came up, and then we were Prince's backup dancers for half the concert. And we did
Amazing.
not lie. We went to dance with Prince. Exactly. The reason I bring that up is because later on in that evening, I had a incredibly life-changing conversation with
Mm.
Prince. And
Oh.
was a super, very generous,
Mhm.
and I don't know how to explain it. It was almost like he was like he could see me in a way that other people couldn't
Mm.
see me,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
And he did. He called me out on a couple of things that he was like, and then he said to me, he said, like, "You're super sad. I don't know what's making you really sad." He said, "But your light will come back. It will. I
Mm.
promise you, it will." He could tell that I was just in this dark bubble, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
And we talked about traveling, and we talked about the world, and we talked about
Mhm.
love,
Mhm.
and he really encouraged me to leave. And so
Mhm.
I did. I told my family I was going to go travel and try to get my head together,
Mhm.
and that I'd be gone for 6 months because, again, everything that needed to fall into place fell into place.
Yeah.
And I ended up with a job on cruise ships.
Mm.
And I went, and I was supposed to be gone for 6 months. And I think I was gone for about 11 years.
Oh my.
So 6 months, 11 years, you know, same, same.
It is. It is. Give or take.
um,
Yeah.
Give or take, give or take. So I did end up actually traveling around the world, working for a couple of three, I think, different companies in leadership positions,
Mhm.
doing workshops, televised workshops, speaking to big crowds,
Yeah.
educating, because I had changed uh, careers, and now I was selling jewelry, high-end
Mm.
jewelry, diamonds, sapphires, emeralds, that sort of thing, but for very well-known
Mhm.
names in terms of the brands that those were. And I had an education where I was able to go around the world and learn about all of these
Yeah.
gems. And so eventually I settled down in Mexico, Belize first. Belize for a year, Mexico for 4 years, maybe,
Yeah.
Roatan for a couple of years, and then back to Canada. And that journey of being on my own for that
Mhm.
long around the world in countries that were not known to me, I'm like, oh,
Mhm.
where am I? I'm living in Tahiti for like almost 2 years, I'm
Mhm.
living in Japan for 6 months, that sort of lifestyle. So learning different languages,
Mhm.
really getting immersed
Yeah.
in the area that I'm living in to such a degree that I'm, making friends with
Mhm.
families that are locals and, local businesses and things like this. So I think that gave me a further perspective on
Mhm.
life and people, that also gave me a further sense of
Yeah.
confidence. And I would recommend it for anyone, for their daughters in
Mhm.
particular. I'm not joking when I say that,
Yeah.
because we live in a world that really wants to sort of silence quiet
Yeah.
girls, like it makes wants us to be nice. I think I said to somebody the other day, "Oh, I'm not nice. I don't really have
Mhm.
a relationship with niceness."
Mhm.
And they looked at me really funny, and I went, "Yeah, I know, like what you're thinking, like, you're not mean." And I said, "No, but I don't think that's the opposite to
Yeah.
nice, though. I
Yeah.
think it's nice is such a passive thing."
Yeah.
I said, "I'm an incredibly kind human being,
Mhm.
but nice is not it for me,
Yeah.
Like, nice means be meek, be quiet, be
Mhm.
passive, I'm just not there,
Yeah.
And I think that when you travel the world and doing so on your own, there's this openness that you have to be, but also
Mm.
a bit of guardedness that you also have to be,
Yeah.
right? To be safe, right?
Yeah.
So you learn so much more about people, and the
Mhm.
world becomes so. I've always traveled. I've traveled since I was 6 years old, and I
Yeah.
moved from Trinidad to Canada,
Yeah.
right? But I've always traveled, I've never been a person who's been in one tiny little corner, and thought that that was it.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I live here, and this is what the world looks like, and this is how everybody is. I've never been that person.
Mhm.
But getting such a vast education and
Mhm.
experience, I think now I've been to over 100 countries at least,
Yeah.
So
Wow.
you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
that's a lot to
Yeah.
absorb.
Yeah.
So it teaches you a lot, and I've learned a lot, and I've
Mhm.
learned a lot about in terms of experience and wisdom. You
Mhm.
get to take those things in as well, and all that takes time as well. I'm not 35.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? At 35, I can say, for instance, at 30, I thought I knew so much.
Yeah.
I thought I was so arrogant. I knew everything that there was to know. And I literally woke up on my 30th birthday and had a conversation with myself
Mhm.
in my head where I went, "You think you're so freaking smart.
Mhm.
You really have a lot more to learn." So I went back to school at 30 years old. Like I went back to university.
Yeah.
My life has been, there's not been a road that has been a straight
Mhm.
trajectory. You know
Mhm.
what I mean? It's been up and down and wobbly and all of those sorts of things. And I actually think that that's been, if you call it God or universe or
Mhm.
source or whatever you want to call it, that's the plan,
Yeah.
right? Like we think our lives should go like this, and then it thinks our lives should go
Yeah.
like this.
Yeah. And a windy road,
You
and
know,
yeah.
it, it is there, and so yeah, I think I've earned my leadership skills
Mhm.
and badges in a pretty interesting way,
Yeah.
and I wouldn't have it any other way.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, Lystra, I'm in awe. I'm in awe of everything that you've shared with us, because I want to name something that is really crucial amongst many other things in terms of reflections. Anybody who's listening right now is probably thinking that's been a response that is so fulsome in a long period of time. And I want to acknowledge that you are in many ways embodying how we can decolonize spaces, right? Because often, yes, and that's why I say I want to name it, because often we can find ourselves in spaces where the question gets asked. And I know for me, I'm right away looking at the time, and I'm a 2-minute concise responder, right? And so I'm sitting there and I'm like, okay, must get my points packaged, give them 3 points. And anyone who knows me knows this, that I'm a 3-pointer, 2 minutes. And that's often because we're in spaces where that is required of us. Our being is needed to be fitted into this nicely packaged box that has this trajectory that, yada, yada, yada. And I want to
Thank
say
you.
thank you. Thank you for showing us how we can sit in space where all of those criterias and expectations get thrown out of the window and we just enjoy. And that's what I as somebody who's in the space with you, I've been enjoying hearing your journey, because I'm like, what? You sat with Janet Jackson? You spoke to Prince? I'm like, so many like little fires in my heart have been sparking, because you've lived a full life.
I really have.
You have. And I'm like, I
I really have.
love this. I love this, because
I really.
I think it's particularly when I think of the listeners, like women of color and racialized women, like you just said, like there's this expectation, particularly in women, that's being placed around, you must be nice, you must be the good girl, you must follow the following steps. Like it's not a manual, but it feels like a manual of how to do life.
It feels like a
It
prescription.
feels
Yeah.
like a
Yeah.
prescription.
Yeah.
And you are showing us that there's a way to debunk this, and there's a way to actually choose a different path. And I'm gonna yeah, so many questions, but let me start off with this question, because I'm like, oh, so this is so juicy. I i think of the theme of season 2 is about breaking cycles.
Mhm.
And I often think that at the heart, and you had shared this at the beginning, at the heart of sometimes being able to have a full life is being able to have a livelihood that we can afford it, right? And it comes down to the dollar sign, or wherever somebody might be listening from, it might be a different currency symbol, but it comes down to the money. And there's a lot of trauma around money. And so I would love to hear from you. Can you speak to that piece of trauma around money, and what does that mean for you when I say that?
First of all, I want to say thanks. I want to say thank you for recognizing and for allowing me that fulsome,
Absolutely.
wholesome response to your question. Storytelling is a
Yeah.
part of my history.
Yes.
I know it's a part of your
Totally.
history. you know so I think that it's really important to, and as you say, we're when we get into spaces, especially Black and Indigenous women, I'm just going to
Yeah.
say that we get into spaces and it's like, am I allowed to have a voice here?
Hmm.
Can I speak
Yeah.
up? But if I speak up, I'm very aware that I'm speaking,
Yeah.
so I can't give that fulsome
Yeah.
answer
Yeah.
to the question. And I just started breaking that. Yeah. And I'm a
Yeah.
storyteller. I
You.
come by it honestly. So to answer your question, I'm just going to say that, yeah, money and trauma around money. Let me define first what I'm going to talk about a little bit, okay?
Yeah.
I am a facilitator in a cohort called the Trauma of Money.
Hmm.
And the co-founder, the CEO of that cohort, Chantel Chapman, she defines money trauma, sorry, as being a type of trauma that someone experiences in their lifetime or passed down generationally
Hmm.
that actually doesn't necessarily have to be about money,
Hmm.
but it impacts their relationship with money. And the approach that Trauma of Money takes to trauma and money is a very unique approach. It's away from that financial literacy education that everybody
Hmm.
kind of talks about.
Hmm.
And it doesn't, it includes that, but it focuses on including conversation and facts
Hmm.
around systemic and societal
Yeah.
traumas. So
Amazing.
it's not an individual
Mm-mm.
thing. When people are talking about financial literacy,
Yeah.
they'll come to you, like they'll put it back on you and go, well, you haven't been taking care of your
Right.
finances well.
Hmm.
Oh, okay. This might be true. Okay. But why haven't I been taking care of my finances well?
Exactly.
There's always a why. There's a reason why. And we could believe folks for telling us that we're bad money
Mm.
managers, or we don't know what to do with money because we don't have generational wealth and we haven't had
Hmm.
it. Like there's so many things we could listen to. I say it's all bunk. I say
Hmm.
that the relationship to money and leadership, being able to lead the life that we want to lead, having the resources to do so,
Hmm.
if we don't heal
Um,
first, and this is not the first time I'm saying this
hmm.
like publicly. I've sat on panels
Yeah.
where, and I've challenged them when they've said, for the Black community, if we ever want to get anywhere, we need to have better financial literacy programs. And I've been like, gonna just push back on
Hmm.
that. And I'm gonna say, if you don't heal
Yeah.
your money trauma, and all, which is all your trauma,
Yeah.
okay?
Exactly.
If you don't
Yeah.
heal first, I could give you $1 million tomorrow. It ain't gonna help you.
Mm.
You're gonna go out and you're gonna buy stuff. You're gonna spend. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you're not going to make that $1 million work for you.
Yeah.
You know. And as someone who I took the trauma of money course,
Mhm.
I took the course first and earned the certificate. And when I earned the certificate, I was like, I can never leave here. I, it's kind of like becoming dependent on a therapist, even
Mhm.
though it's not therapy.
Right.
It'll be therapy for you however you decide to use it,
Right.
right? But it's the cohort is not therapy.
Hmm.
It is deep learning. And it's a lot of learning that I had done already, but it put it into an order that I could then focus on a couple of things: the trauma
Yeah.
and where that trauma was laid.
Hmm.
And also, I learned a very, very deep learning. I took it out myself. Like
Hmm.
it's in there. They teach us a lot about our nervous
Yeah.
systems. And I took that, I extrapolated that from the cohort, and I went and did more research and learned more.
Hmm.
And so I could learn more about myself and keeping myself regulated and how
Right.
important that was to making decisions about how you work, about how you lead, about how you spend, about how you
Mhm.
earn, you know?
Yeah.
And I cannot tell you the difference this has made, not just in my leadership skills,
Mm.
in my personal skills, because I live my
Yeah.
values, right? I don't just work my values, I live them, right? So it's made such an impact in my own life and then the lives of the people around me
Mhm.
because I won't shut up about it. I'm always on about trauma of money. You guys should take the course. You should go. You should take the course, right? I'm just
Absolutely.
gonna
Yeah.
tell you
Oh, I'm going.
right now. We
Mm.
all really should be there,
Yeah.
you know? And I say that because I suppose if I wanted to track it, like I would say something like when I went into trauma of money in 2020, my business was came to a halt
Mhm.
because we were in
Right.
lockdown.
Right.
My business is the travel business,
Mhm.
and so where you going?
Oh,
you know?
can imagine. Oh my gosh.
Exactly. So after giving back tens of thousands of dollars to people
Yeah.
who were my clients, like everyone else, I was like, what am I pivoting to?
Mhm.
And which is something I literally thought I made up. I was like, all of a sudden I started hearing everybody say pivoting. I went, you guys in my head? What's going on? No, anyway. So I started doing more speaking and more workshops and things like that so that I could get it out there that we are a decolonizing company. We do things from now. I get to also say, because of trauma of money, because of my community capacity building from SFU program, some other courses that I've taken, I now also get to say we are decolonizing and trauma
Mhm.
informed,
Mhm.
you know?
Mhm.
And that is so helpful in today's world.
Yeah.
So if I was to talk about what trauma of money has tangibly given me?
Mhm.
Well, my earnings in 2020, I mean, I don't know, who was earning
Yeah.
what, in 2020. I'd have to look at my CRA to figure that out, but it wasn't a lot.
Mhm.
And my revenue last year was over $200,000 for my tiny little business.
Amazing.
With that being said, I also have been building a business that is a actual viable business.
Mhm.
I contribute to the economy of my province and my country.
Yeah.
I hire people, they work with me, as
Mhm.
I have a team, they work for me. I refuse, like, I can't pay anyone less than our living wage, I believe, is 26 something,
Mhm.
but I go far above that, and for people who are working on my team, because it's an expensive city to live in, and I want people. This is the thing that people don't understand, that if you want to have a viable business, that means you've got to treat the people that
Mhm.
work in your company like people,
Yes.
like humans, right?
Yes.
And in doing so, we live in a city with the rising cost of living that is
Mhm.
outrageous. If I want folks to focus on the work that I need them to do,
Yeah.
how are they going to do that when they're worried about whether or not they can pay their
Mm,
rent
bills.
tomorrow?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So it makes sense for me to make sure their rent is paid,
Mhm.
to make sure that if my nervous system is regulated and I'm around a
Yeah.
bunch of people who have deregulated nervous systems, that means I'm going to
Yeah.
dysregulate too.
Totally.
I don't want that.
No.
So I want to make sure that we're
Mm.
all regulating with each other and we
Yes.
all have good nervous systems. These are some of the things that, yes, I learned in trauma of money.
Yeah.
And you're like, people will be like, what does that have to do with money? What does that have to do
Yeah.
with trauma? And of course, I'm making the connections here
Yes.
now, right? It's like, this is what it has to do with
Yeah.
money. We can't earn well together. We can't talk to our clients and figure out what our clients' needs are in a good time
Yeah.
frame if we're constantly trying to run hither and thither
Mhm.
and figure out how we're going to live.
Yeah.
So I really wanted to make sure that I had a company that was inviting folks to thrive,
Yeah.
not survive.
Yeah. And I really want to say thank you. Thank you, Lystra, for embodying that and for showcasing what learning and healing can do in terms of some really tangible and concrete shifts and changes that you've put in your life, you have placed in your business, and that has had a ripple effect on so many more people who you've come into contact with, whether these were people who are part of this new cohort of trauma of money, or your staff in your business, and I imagine many others, because when you are able to disrupt the cycle in many ways, people start to see the cycle for what it is. And I want to really acknowledge, I we often hear of the term scarcity, scarcity versus abundance. And I myself, I wanted to share, my parents have a financial background in banking and investment banking. And so growing up, like, money was part of conversations, and we would, my dad would be like, do you know what the stock exchange is looking like? Let's talk about equity. Like, it was important conversations.
Sports.
And yet, when I was in my 20s, I was finding myself continuously in debt.
Mm.
Now, I had phenomenal jobs. I was getting paid really well for a 20 something year old. But what would happen inevitably, the cycle that I would fall into is something, bad would happen at work.
Oh,
And I would be like, I need retail therapy.
I knew you were
Retail
going there.
therapy, right? Like,
I knew you were going
you
to
knew
say
I was
that.
going to say that. And I had a friend, and we laugh about it now because now we catch ourselves. But back then, I had a friend who I just needed to put on speed dial and say, I need retail therapy. Can you come? She would say to me, I need retail therapy. Can you come? And we would go and we would blow the credit card,
Sure.
right? And then next thing you
Yeah.
know, next few months are going to be tight. And lo
Yeah.
and behold, something bad happens at work again. There's a little bit of space on that credit card,
Yeah.
and boom, the cycle continues.
Yes.
And that
Yes.
was it. That was and but I always got out of the debt, but climbed myself back in.
Back in.
Right? Climb myself out, climb myself back in. And
Yeah.
so it took a while. And I'm
Yeah.
still healing. Like, I certainly don't want
Yeah.
to project like I'm this perfect person who doesn't have debt. But yeah, but I
We're
think
all still
we're all
healing.
still healing. It's like you said, the moment that I started to have a different relationship with my nervous system, I started to recognize the pattern. I started to then realize the scarcity sometimes kept me in spaces or in jobs that weren't serving me, that were
Yeah.
toxic. And
Yeah.
so it became a pattern and a cycle that, like, I needed to cut at many points.
Oh man, you're
Yeah,
saying so much right
yeah.
now. You're
To
saying
live better.
so much.
Yeah.
Yeah, because first of all, the healing doesn't
I
stop.
know.
We are never healed,
No.
And the reason for that is, I'll tell you, if tomorrow
Yeah.
our all the systems that we live in would change,
Yeah.
and they would be just,
Hmm.
and they would show us that we all belong, and so it's
Yeah.
switched completely, then we still have a few generations of cycle
I
breaking to do.
know.
You know what
It's
I mean?
true.
So we're living in the ocean
Yeah.
that we, like, we're swimming in the ocean that we want to get out of.
Yeah.
So
It's
how, of course, there is no end to
um,
this healing thing. We have to, it's an ongoing thing that we have to do every day. Same thing goes with the decolonizing.
yeah.
That's why I use the word decolonizing
Yeah.
and not decolonized.
Yeah.
I could say to people, we're a decolonized company. I'm like, how are you going to be a decolonized
Mhm.
company in a colonial world?
Yeah.
I don't know how that happens.
Um,
Every day I wake up, I have to say to myself, oh, okay, let's see. I wonder in what way I'm going to show up in my unhealed, colonial,
mm,
biased bullshit.
mm. Mhm.
Like, I wonder in what way I'm going to show up with that today.
Yeah.
And somehow or the other, give myself grace
Yeah.
when I do,
Yeah.
because it's going to happen.
Yeah.
Because we're human.
Yeah.
So I also do not want to come off as though, I've got it all figured out. I got some of the answers, but I got way more questions than I have answers.
I want to acknowledge that your authenticity and your intentionality is shining through. And
Oh, thanks.
and that's why, to be really, really and beautifully honest, that's why I really wanted this podcast to happen. Was many of us don't know that the things we're experiencing, particularly as women of color, is not just an individualized experience, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't come down to it's only me and therefore there must be a problem with me. It comes down to there have been, like you said, generational, systemic, and persistent shifts
Yeah.
in everything that we do, whether it's at the organizations and the institutions that we dedicate 8 to 10 hours a day, which, by the way, please stay within boundaries of 7 to 8 hours, but or it's in the spaces that we find ourselves when we are looking for wellness and we're looking for connection and we're looking for community. Unless we find those spaces that can accept the all of us, we're continuously needing to renegotiate how to show up.
Yeah.
Hi there. As a speaker, leadership coach, and facilitator, I love curating opportunities for us to connect. So, if you are a woman of color entrepreneur looking to scale your business, or you'd like to add an additional 5-figure income stream, join me in November to transform your passion into profit. I'll show you how to create a 5-figure high-impact workshop in 3 days that not only captivates, but also converts. Visit my website to sign up. I hope to see you there. I wanted us, as we have the conversations with each guest, you are definitely one of them, for us to showcase for people that what you're experiencing it's valid, and we get to break these cycles.
Yeah.
And we might regress, but we get to break them again.
Hopefully,
Yeah,
hopefully we get to break them with some grace,
yeah,
like by giving ourselves some grace and others giving us grace too,
yeah,
that when we do mess it up,
yeah.
which we will
Which we will.
eventually, that we can be held accountable
Yeah.
and also held, full
Yes.
stop.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah, because this is something that is really important to me in community, and I named my business Community. You know what I
I
mean?
know.
Like,
Love it.
community has always been a very big part of my life. Again, I had parents who raised us as to be a part of community and to be contributing citizens,
Yeah.
and contributing not in just a way of you have a job, but you better volunteer somewhere.
Mm.
You better find community where you can help to uplift and give help people to find their empowerment, and you know what I mean. These were their values, right? And I have not gone. I was going to say I haven't shifted far from their values, but I guess I maybe pushed them further. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Rather than that, by, as I say, naming my business Community, and my
Mhm.
business is focused on underserved
Yeah.
communities, right? That my point there was that we are not
Yeah.
individuals. We aren't.
Yeah.
And the systems that we live in,
Yeah.
the dominating systems that we live in, white supremacy culture,
Mhm.
capitalism, they want us
Yeah.
to feel like we're on our own,
Yeah.
that it's just me. And so I'm to blame for, and I'm the one who should carry the shame for, not having enough,
Yeah.
for living in, and then living
Yeah.
scarcely and thinking scarcity all the
Yeah.
time. That if my business is failing, then it's all my fault,
Yeah. Yeah.
And I say this because what's really important to me, Roheen, is that we know that there's no self-made anything.
Yeah.
Like, there's no, oh, I'm a self-made millionaire, I'm a self-made business person. You are not. Nobody is. No, it's
It
impossible. I
is.
don't care what anybody says. I'm like,
Love
I'm going to
it.
challenge that.
Yeah.
I am going to challenge that and say, really? you have, are you in service at all? Because if you're in service, that means you have clients. So
Yeah.
without your clients, you're nothing. So you didn't do this by yourself,
Yeah.
you know? Even if you're just one person doing a thing, like you can't do it by yourself.
Yeah.
I really I push back on that on purpose because I think that in our community we've in many ways
Hmm.
bought into that
Yeah.
individualism,
Yeah.
individuality of capitalism, and we have used it in the way that it was created to be used, which is to build mistrust within
Mm.
ourselves, in our communities. And the mistrust that's built is on top of trauma formed
Hmm.
mistrust that has come from generations
Yeah.
of mistreatment,
Yes.
not from ourselves,
No.
but from the dominant culture. But we've been taught it's the divide and
Divine and
conquer,
conquer.
you know?
Yeah.
And so, one of the impacts that I'm hoping to make
Hmm.
is to show folks that they can trust each other
Hmm.
again by giving grace to each other,
Yeah.
not having an expectation of perfection, which is another tenet of
Yeah.
white supremacy culture. And so, not, I don't have to be perfect for you to be my client.
Yeah.
And for you to say good things about my business, and for you to go and tell people, actually, Lystra's business is a great business. We had some hiccups with a couple of things. She's growing with that and she's making some changes.
Yeah.
You really should go talk to her about this, though, because she's good at what she does.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't we do that rather than
Mhm.
go, oh, yeah, we had some problems and I don't know if I can go back
Mm.
there again?
Mhm.
Which is, I always find that really interesting
Yeah.
because we find our way back to Amazon, we find our way back to Safeway, we find our way back to, you know, Target,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
no matter what they've done, they get
Yeah.
grace, you go back there.
Yeah.
So why can't you do that in your community
Mhm.
and help to build each other up?
Yeah.
And that again, trauma, money.
Yeah. Absolutely. Oh gosh,
Right?
you are speaking some truths. You really are.
Okay. I'll tell you, this is one of the impacts I really want to make. And I believe I'm making some headway. I tell people whenever I do talks like this, podcasts, panels, I tell folks all the time, I can show you where I would say 68 to 75 cents of every one of my dollars that I
Mhm.
spent,
Mhm.
I can show you how it goes to a Black or Indigenous company.
Mm.
I can show you how it goes to a woman owned company. I can show you how it goes to a Black, Indigenous company that supports people with disabilities. I can show
Mhm.
you how it goes to a single Black or Indigenous owned company of a woman. Do you see what I'm
Oh yeah.
saying? Because I'm incredibly intentional about the intersectionality of my spend.
Yes.
I'm incredibly intentional
Yeah.
about where my money goes. And the reason why I'm talking about this is because I said this on a panel maybe in February or March that I spoke, and then I saw this gentleman who was on the panel with me.
Mhm.
I said, "We're going to spend it anyway. So
Yeah.
why not spend it in our community?"
Yeah.
And the other day I was in a huge event.
Mhm.
He got up on stage
Mhm.
and he said, "Lystra taught me."
Yeah.
And I was like, "What?"
Yes.
And he said, "She said, we're going to spend it anyway.
Yeah.
Why not spend it in community?" And he made this great gesture of a donation to,
Yeah.
to community, to our people, to us.
Yes.
That's trust. That's breaking the cycle.
That is.
Because the cycle where it sits is it's trauma,
Yeah.
which holds that trauma is like mistrust
Mhm.
and I don't know, doused in divide, doused
Mhm.
in singularity, doused in,
Oh,
you know what I
yeah.
mean?
Doused
Doused
in,
in,
doused in.
doused in blame, doused in shame,
Absolutely.
all of that,
And also
right?
doused in, there's only few spaces, so only few of us can be successful, so therefore
See that?
we must
Oh,
compete against each other.
no,
and
never.
and it happens even across races, like we must compete against each other because that only one, diversity hire,
That's right.
right,
That's right.
can get that role. And so I,
That's
I
right.
just, I really like my body, like my nervous system is, oh yeah, this is pumping. Like I want to just like acknowledge this, because what I really want to just share that is so crucial and so critical, Listra, is what you are giving us is a formula against the formula, right?
I hope so.
You absolutely are. And when you even shared about how do we pour back in to our communities, how do we pour back in a way that allows the energetic movement of money to
In
amplify
our
in
community.
our
Yes,
community. That
exactly.
is how we're healing ourselves, but we're also healing each other on an exponential level. That's what we are doing. And
You totally get
yes,
it.
and if we do that for and with each other, we are healing generations. And it comes down to those conscious choices. Like literally when
Yeah.
you were saying that, remember the friend I was telling you about, who we would be on this beautiful retail therapy cycle with each other.
Yeah.
We made a conscious choice, and it was about a year ago, that we would try to balance
Yeah.
between, yes, paying and giving our money to the big brands and so forth, because the reality is sometimes that is just how we can
Yeah.
afford things, but to also consciously support mom and pop shops,
That's
local
right.
artists, and to be
Yes.
intentional with who we were doing that to. And just
Yeah.
even these earrings that I'm wearing today, and yours too, yeah, absolutely. I have shifted most of my jewelry and most of my clothing to trying to find local
Yeah.
community, local artists, local brands, because
Love it.
that is how we start to move the money. That's how we start to
Right.
move the play and the game. And by doing so, we will feel that healing in return. And so I,
You got it.
yeah, Listra, you've given us so
You got
much. And I want us to close with some beautiful moments, and I would first invite, there are women of color, and there are racialized women who are starting their leadership journey, who are maybe needing to make that decision about, do I take this role at this particular salary level? And then there are others who are well into their leadership journey, and they're needing to think about, where do they go with this? What advice would you give them when you think about breaking that cycle and healing?
Wow. Do I take that role? Is this the right fit for me? Is this where I want to be? Do I start that business? You know, there's a part of us that from the time we're little, we have a voice that tells us the answers. It's our intuition, and it really is, it leads us in a great direction. Unfortunately, for most of us, by the time we're in our teen years, that is being quieted,
Mm.
and we're being told, listen to me, and then therefore, and listen to your brain, but don't listen to that intuitive part of ourselves.
Yeah.
I think that's a part of our inheritance, that intuitive part of ourselves.
Mhm.
And if we can connect back to that
Yeah.
and listen to that voice, whether we connect back to it because we've done great one on one therapy, which sure, I recommend.
Mhm.
And also, there's a lot of other modalities of therapy out there.
Yeah.
Literally free therapy, a walk in
Yeah.
nature, go touch a tree,
Yeah.
you know?
Mm.
And so be by the ocean and, spend time alone and be reflective
Mm.
and journal so that you understand who you are
Yeah.
without the voices in your head. Get in touch with that part of yourself. Oh my God, get regulated, please. The more we can get regulated, the
Mm.
better. And so I think I have to tell folks they have to follow their intuition. They
Yeah.
have to learn to follow their intuition because no one can give you the answer,
Yeah.
just And if you've made, oh my God, please, if you've learned as you go along, you're in there for 3 weeks, you've
Mhm.
made the wrong, get the hell out. No one's holding you
I
hostage
know.
here. I know you've got bills to pay.
Yeah.
Maybe find something else before you leave, but get out. Do not be the person who goes, oh, it's not that bad. I'll stay. I would say, you've got elders and
Hmm.
you've got, so talk to those folks,
Yeah.
talk to the elders, talk to your community, reach into them and have a chat and see if there's someone who you can, like someone that you trust that you
Yeah.
can get good guidance from,
Yeah.
because you shouldn't have to make all those big decisions by
No.
yourself either. So that's really important. I want to say, I want to say thank you to you,
Oh.
Roheen, for having this podcast and for having me on. I think it's really
Mm-hmm.
important for us to continue to have these conversations about healing and
Mm-hmm.
leader and where we're going, as certainly as in our individual lives, but as a
Yeah.
community, a bigger container. And anyone who's giving us platforms, creating
Mm-hmm.
platforms to have those conversations
Yeah.
and leaving them open as you are, I applaud.
Mm.
So thank you very much for bringing that into our community.
I often end our episodes with two final questions because I know that
Yes.
we've touched on some really significant topics that are going to bring a lot forward and up for people. And so I like to end a light note, but also on a really crucial note as well. So I've got two final questions for you, Lystra. The first question is, can you share with us what has been the most outrageous thing that you have done for love or friendship?
God. Oh my God. Oh wow.
I know.
Oh, the most outrageous thing I've done for love or friendship. And yeah, because I love all my friends too. So I understand love in very different ways.
Mhm.
Romantic love as well as friendship love and family love. And what is has been the most outrageous thing I've done for love? Shit. It's the only thing really that comes to mind is, and I think people do this all the time these days, but is travel, go to another continent to hang out with somebody that you think you're or maybe that you are in love with,
Yeah, yeah. No, I love it. I love it. And it
Yeah.
is. And that is a big thing because
Is it?
yeah, it requires hours sitting in a confined seat. Like,
You have to pack.
yeah, you can count
I
it.
did have to pack, and yeah.
Oh, I love it. And
Anyone who knows me knows I don't love to pack. I'm one of those people who packs like 3 hours before they have to go to the airport because I really don't like packing. So I did have to pack.
yeah,
Yeah.
I admire that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. My final question is, Lystra, often our listeners or viewers want to know more about the person who's been speaking to them, speaking to their heart, as well as what should they do? What action should they take? So what is one thing that you would love the listeners or viewers to take you up on?
The one thing that I would love folks to take me up on is I would like people to go and check out the Trauma of Money
Yeah.
cohort. I know you said one
Oh,
thing.
you can say
Um,
multiple. I came up with the one, but there's a range.
yeah,
Mhm.
I my business is right now in the process of becoming a B Corp certified company. I know it's
That
huge.
is huge.
And we're getting there. This has been a dream for 6 years or something. And in 2 seconds, we're getting there. What I'm trying to say is something that I'm not getting out very eloquently. There's a level program that they have
Mhm.
for Black women, women of color, Indigenous women who are entrepreneurs.
Yeah,
And I really want to get the word out about this program because I think a lot of people don't know it
yeah,
exists. And a lot of people think that they could never be a B Corp certified company because we have smaller businesses, or,
right.
oh, I'm just working
Yeah.
this as a part time job right now, or whatever the case is.
Hmm.
It's quite expensive to become a B Corp certified
I can
company.
imagine.
This level program, they take care of all the expenses for you. They put you with a consulting firm, they put you with a legal
Wow.
firm. It's an amazing
Yeah.
program. And I would not have known about it again if I wasn't in community.
Yeah.
So I really wanted to get that out
Yeah.
to women that
Thank
are
you.
out there doing their own entrepreneurial journey.
Thank you.
The more of us we can see in the room, the better.
Yes.
I am who does not believe that it's a good thing. If I'm ever the only one in the room, I want to get out.
Yeah.
I'm like, I will stay to represent, but this is probably the wrong
Yeah.
room.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, because I shouldn't be the only one here,
Absolutely.
So I always want us, as much as we do what we do at Community with businesses and events and
Hmm.
travel and all of that, we believe that whatever, as long as the direction we're going in is somehow leading upward,
Yeah.
we'll never go on our own.
No.
We'll always be
Take
taking other
everyone.
people with us. We'll always be
Yeah.
taking other people with
I
us,
love that.
I just wanted to say to folks, I don't think I can empower someone, but I think I can lead in such a way that people can be
Yeah.
empowered while they're with me and around me and out in the world
Yeah.
on their own. They can learn how to be empowered, right?
Mm,
So
absolutely.
that's a big goal for us.
Thank you. Thank you, Lister. Thank you so much for really this hour of our time has filled my heart in in a way that I can only describe as the essence of Ubuntu. And yes, yeah, no,
Oh, thank
like
you. You're gonna make me cry
I
now.
know, I know,
End
because
of this session,
because
you're gonna make me cry.
no, on yeah,
That's one of our tenets,
yeah,
though. That's why I'm like, oh, I actually give off
you
Ubuntu. I'm like,
absolutely
I
do.
love that.
When you said I'm living in my values and I'm living my values, like people say that, and then sometimes we see some of that. Sometimes we're like, I don't know.
Hmm.
And so you are embodying it, and even taking up that that space to share in a way that's going to elevate and amplify the next her is huge. And so thank you for your generosity, thank you for your kindness, thank you for your love, your compassion, your wisdom, and thank you for being you and being on Unspeakable Leadership. It has been an honest pleasure to be in conversation with you. Thank you.
Thank you again. Thank you for having me. And I just want to put my hands up and say thank you
Thank you.
to the ancestors. I
Yes,
would not be
always.
here without them.
Each of us has a relationship with money, one that could be healthy or deserving of some attention. When Lystra and I explored this cycle today, I reflected on how much money isn't just about the feeling you have when you check your balance, or the guilt that might come the moment you put down a deposit on something you've always wanted. It also becomes the weight that this currency carries and shapes the decisions we make as leaders in our professional roles and lives. I remember early on in my leadership career having a budget of $40,000 annually. This budget was meant to stretch and cover being able to oversee several programs. I was told to be creative with the money, knowing full well that the goals I was required to achieve were grossly under resourced by this amount. Sleepless nights, constant stress, worry, and feelings of powerlessness plagued that first year of trying to oversee this budget and doing well in the role. It was also coupled with a ridiculous desire to prove that I could be creative with little and that somehow I could do this to prove that I was worthy of the role. That's what it came down to me. It came down to my sense of worth, the value I placed on myself. Thankfully, there's a happy ending to this story, and my budget grew the next year because I was able to demonstrate the need for it to be higher. But it really highlighted for me how little of a threshold had been created for me and how little of that threshold I was working at. Trauma around money, as Lister shared, can seep insidiously into other areas of your life. The relationships you choose to be in, the treatment that you receive, how you take care of your health, even your path of spirituality or faith, and so much more. Simply put, you deserve your worth. nothing less. But how do we actually get out of this trap? How do we heal? My own journey of healing has been challenging. It's meant that I've had to confront some really harsh, important truths. And it's also meant that I have had to look at myself in the mirror and realize that I made mistakes, that I also was part of a harmful way of looking at how I could live. So, in thinking about how I would close this episode, I wanted to end with some reflective questions. Questions that will help you on your own journey. And it's my hope that questions that will spark a desire to think about your own healing. The first is, what is your earliest memory related to money? And how does it express itself in your life and leadership today? I can think of a countless memories, but the one I really want to share with you is one that always holds some space in my mind. And that is, I had been in Canada probably about a year, and my family had experienced a significant turn in being able to say we were financially safe and secure. And I was young. I was in high school at the time, and I had to go on a field trip. The field trip cost, I remember, $15, and parents were meant to sign this permission slip. I knew that this $15 was going to be a bit of a hit. My parents just eavesdropping of their conversations, or just even in my conversations in the mornings in the car with my mom and dad, made me realize we didn't have a lot of money. And so asking them to spend $15 for me to go on this field trip to Playland, for those of you who don't know what Playland is, it's a incredible amusement park. I knew it would have been a hard decision for them to make. Yet they made it and they said yes, and they found a way to pay that $15. I was excited. I got to go on what felt at that tender age a trip of a lifetime. But here's the thing about that experience. Even though my parents had the $15 to pay for the park, what they didn't have was what we would refer to as the pocket money to spend at the amusement park. So, without putting that pressure on them, I didn't ask for them. I went to the amusement park, I remember, with $2, a $2 coin. And I remember thinking to myself, I'm sure I can find something. Anyone who's been to an amusement park knows that it's expensive. And so the only thing I could buy was a Mars bar, a chocolate bar that was available in a vending machine that thankfully cost $2. And that's what I ate. I didn't enjoy the popcorn like everyone else. I didn't enjoy the candy or any of the amazing, yummy treats that everyone enjoyed. And I watched people enjoy themselves and told myself that it's okay, that I could stomach little, literally. And when I think of that memory, I think of how much it's shaped the very experience that I shared with you earlier, that I could do so much with little. And that's great because it's shown me that I can, but it's also developed coping strategies and ways in which I've navigated my finances and my leadership in unhealthy ways. So I hope as you think about your earliest memory, you think about how it expresses itself even now. Which leads me to my second question, and that is, what beliefs did you inherit about money, and where are there opportunities to debunk these beliefs if they no longer serve you? I know that my belief of I can do so much with little is so untrue. I can't. I'm not superhuman. And so, my last question to you is, where in your life would you like to start making changes? As I think about our conversations throughout this podcast series and even my conversation with Lystra, I really think that committing to healing is a courageous act of self love. When we face deep seated issues as leaders and as women of color, the improvement isn't just about gaining financial literacy. It becomes a powerful declaration of opening the door to an abundant and fulfilling life. And my sister, that is what you deserve. There is an African proverb that says, you have to heal the wound before it ignores the medicine. What is one step you can take in your journey towards financial freedom?
The world needs more of you being just you. As always, take care of yourself and see you soon.